Hey, all you cool cats and kittens, it's Carol. No, it's not Carol Baskin. It's another primary source walkthrough. I feel like that joke is too old now. You know? Maybe in March it would have worked, but here in October, since it's been 5 decades since March, maybe Carol Baskin jokes don't work anymore. Anyway, welcome to another primary source walkthrough. This is a walkthrough for Dorothy West's Amateur Night in Harlem. This is a really interesting source. As the introduction to it suggests, it has a lot to say about race in American life, and this doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the New Deal per se. The Federal Writers Project had come out of the New Deal, and West is writing in that vein. But I think this gives us a bit of a bird's eye view into what interracial relations look like in New York, particularly in Harlem in 1938. And given that we talked about the Harlem Renaissance last week, I thought this would be an interesting source to revisit. Because here we're going to see that that whiteness becomes kind of an encroachment on this black space. So, the first thing you got to know is what the Apollo Theater is. As a white person myself, I don't think I could fully do justice to explaining the Apollo Theater and its cultural meaning. That said, I mean, I have watched Night at the Apollo, which was a filming of things that went on at the Apollo. I think it used to be on in late night. But the Apollo amateur night at the Apollo, it's basically it's kind of like an open mic. People can go and try to perform, and the crowd is merciless. If they don't like you, they're going to let you know. Like, you can even be pulled off stage by a giant hook if you suck. And it's not just singing, but it's a variety show. There's dancing, there's comedy, all kinds of stuff. I look it up on YouTube. I mean, you're already here or on YouTube, probably. So, like, look up Night at the Apollo. So look up a night at the Apollo on YouTube. I apologize for my dogs barking. Some solicitors just tried to ring my doorbell. And no time to talk about solar panels right now. Anyway. So, that's what's going on here. So this is a description of the amateur night in 1938. If you notice, I wrote in the margins, it kind of sounds like The Voice. This is going to describe singing more than anything else. But remember, amateur night could mean a whole bunch of things. Dancing, comedy, whatever. In any case, we know that this is a interracial audience because here's West saying, the boxes are filled with sightseeing whites led in tow by swaggering blacks. She's already telling us, by saying sightseeing, that the whites are the outsiders here. And look how she describes she's up in the box and she's looking down in the seats in the bottom rows. The floor is chocolate liberally sprinkled with white sauce. Okay, so this is a predominantly black audience, but there are white people here. And in the balconies, we have mostly black people. But there are a few whites, and they're intruders too. She's going to go on a little bit and explain, what is this about? And this kind of goes with what we were saying earlier. She says, For the Apollo is the hard testing ground of Negro show business, and approval there can make or break an act. That stays true for decades. Man, if you bombed at the Apollo, forget it. Now, read or listen to this description of the person who's hosting this event. The MC comes out of the wings. The audience knows him. He is Negro to his toes, but even Hitler would classify him as Aryan at first glance. Okay, so he is a black man, but he's very light-skinned. What she's saying is, like, Hitler, noted white supremacist, would look at this man and be like, you know what, he's one of us. Though everyone knows, including West, that this person is black. It's interesting. And I want you to pay attention to that because we're going to deal with his identity again in a minute. So the first person comes up. They sing. Another person comes up. She sings. It's going really well. And then all of a sudden, a white man comes out. Nobody minds. They're like, okay, here comes the white guy. As she says, people have gotten used to this. And then the announcer announces the song. And he's going to sing a song, That's Why the Blank Were Born. Now, the MC won't say the blank word. Wes tells us what it is, darky. So this white guy is about to sing to a predominantly black audience, That's Why the Darky Was Born. I want you to imagine that for a second. Here's a white man coming out onto a stage at a predominantly black theater, and he is about to sing a song that's racist as racist can be. And if you notice, I have written the initials JFC in the margins twice here. If you don't know what JFC stands for, Google it. You'll find some good memes. Anyway, so the white man starts to sing this song, and listen to the lyrics. Someone had to plow the cotton. Someone had to plant the corn. Someone had to work while the white folks played. That's why darkies were born. Excuse my language, but holy shit. Could you imagine? Could you imagine seeing this? Like, if you go anywhere right now, okay, pretend there's no pandemic. Like, you go to a predominantly black place and there's a white dude up on stage saying the N-word, he's not going to leave unharmed. But that's essentially what's going to happen here. We have this white guy who's like, someone had to be slaves, and that's why the black people were born. And the crowd reacts appropriately, I think. Everyone is starting, the black people are starting to boo and hiss at him. They give him a couple chances, but then things start to change. The studio officials, the listening audience, largely white, has heard a Negro audience booing a white man. This causes things to be a problem. Even the MC, the announcer, doesn't know what to do anymore. Now, they are not, as Wes points out, the black people are not booing him for being white. The black people are booing this singer for the singers singing this song that categorizes them as slaves. A few seasons ago, they listened to it in silent resentment. Now they have learned to vocalize their bitterness. Now the guy starts a third time. There is resentment in every heart. The white man will not save the situation by leaving the stage, and the MC steps again to the house mic with an impassioned plea to let him finish. The Negroes know this MC. He is as white as any white man. Let's go back. The MC comes out of the wings. The audience knows him. He is Negro to his toes, but even Hitler would classify him as an Aryan at first glance. Well, now he's white. He's described as light-skinned at first. Now he's officially white. What West, I think, is getting here is that whiteness is not necessarily about skin color. That even though this black man is black, he's but what he's doing is he's kind of leveraging his power, and saying, well, let's just give this white guy a chance, blah, 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 blah. And now, in siding with this white man who's singing this very racist song, he has now made himself white. It's fascinating. Think about that for a little while. Now, the MC spreads out his arms and begins, quote, "My people." He says without explanation that his people should be proud of the song. He begs his people to let the song be sung to show that they are ladies and gentlemen. He winds up with a last appeal for his people for fair play. He looks for all the world like the plantation owner's yellow boy acting as a buffer between the black and the big house. Wow. Now the MC is being compared to the black person on the plantation who's more ready to help out the slave owner, the enslaver, than his own people. Now, the whole house breaks into applause, and now the white guy who sang this very racist song wins the first prize. More of the black man's blood money goes out of Harlem. The show is over. The orchestra strikes up. I think you're wonderful. I think you're grand. The audience files out. They are quiet and confused and sad. It's 12 on the dot. 6 hours of sleep and then back to the Bronx or up and down an elevator shaft. Yes, sir, Mr. White Man. I work all day while you all play. It's only fair. That's why darkies were born. Interesting parallels here. I think what West is getting at is that where whiteness is starting to encroach on black culture, whiteness is winning. And think about Du Bois for a second. How do you think Du Bois would react to reading West's piece here? I think Du Bois would say, matter-of-factly, well, this is exactly why we need a Negro nation within our nation. Because it's very clear that there's something wrong. And that our genius is not being celebrated. Because why would the white man win at the black theater with the racist song if there wasn't something wrong in the country? More food for thought. Anyway, we're going to wrap this one up. Keep this in mind as we go forward. We're going to see these dynamics at play as we continue into the civil rights movement and continue throughout the rest of the course. So, if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Happy to chat with you. Come by an office hour. And until the next one, ladies and gentlemen, take care of yourselves. Be healthy. And we'll see you for the next one.